You know, the one thing I admire about this president, and I'm going to say it right up the front, and I don't care if you don't like it, but it's true, and I'm going to say it. One thing I admire about this president is the way he takes the media head on. He never avoids a challenging interview. It's I think it's the gutsy call side of him, you know. It was on display this week as he braved the hot seat of both People magazine and Entertainment Tonight.
Holy cow.
Yeah, he did them both.
That's murderer's row of journalism.
Oh, it's the gutsy call. It's a gutsy call. Should I kill Osama bin Laden?
Oh, yeah. That's
and take on Entertainment Tonight? Yes, he did it. He did them both.
This one's more audacious than even that.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
He hasn't taken questions from the White House press corps, or as he would say, the White House press corps, in more than 2 months. But he did have the intestinal fortitude to face Nancy O'Dell face to face. He went right face to toe, nose to nose with Nancy O'Dell, who was fresh off a Pulitzer Prize-winning series on celebrity fashion faux pas.
And I don't think you or anybody who's been watching me campaign would suggest that in any way we have tried to divide the country. We've always tried to bring the country together.
So he's so right. Mm-hmm. So when Joe Biden said Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan were going to put chains back on black people, what's the big deal? I mean, nobody could say that. Nobody on Entertainment Tonight could ever say that he was trying to divide. I honestly, I'm not sure how this guy sits here on camera with a straight face and says it. I mean, he can't fathom why they would call him divisive. Can't even. I can help you with this, Mr. President. Do you remember what you said about people of faith and gun owners?
It's not surprising then that they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them, or anti-immigrant sentiment, or anti-trade sentiment.
Okay, so he's not trying to divide. He just wants to talk about gun owners and people of faith. They just are small-minded and they have antipathy for anybody who's different than them. And as if that isn't enough, he went the extra mile to reassure the people of faith.
Which passages of Scripture should guide our public policy? Should we go with Leviticus, which suggests slavery is okay and that eating shellfish is an abomination? Or we could go with Deuteronomy, which suggests stoning your child if he strays from the faith? Or should we just stick to the Sermon on the Mount, a passage that is so radical that it's doubtful that our own Defense Department would survive its application?
He is so open-minded always and non-divisive, willing to work with the other side.
We don't mind the Republicans joining us. They can come for the ride, but they got to sit in back.
Okay, so I'm sure that's the Rosa Parks spirit there for you. He's right there. Just sit in the back of the bus. Never combative, never using overheated rhetoric. Never.
But they're going to be paying attention to this election. And if Latinos sit out the election, instead of saying we're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends who stand with us on issues that are important to us, if they don't see that kind of upsurge in voting in this election, then I think it's going to be harder. And that's why I think it's so important that people focus on voting on November 2nd.
See, this is why he goes on Entertainment Tonight, because he knows he'll be asked the tough questions, and he can say, nobody could ever say I'm being divisive. Because Entertainment Tonight, he knows, is going to have right there ready to go. Wait a minute, you said this about your, quote, enemies. And you treat all kinds of people with different backgrounds all exactly the same, don't you?
Typical white person who, if she sees somebody on the street that she doesn't know, there's a reaction that's been bred into our experiences.
Okay. And he's very respectful of differing opinions. Very respectful.
I don't want the folks who created the mess. I don't want the folks who created the mess do a lot of talking. I want them just to get out of the way so we can clean up the mess.
Mm-hmm. He's even showed great respect for his Tea Party critics.
Of you who are watching certain news channels that on which I'm not very popular, and you see folks waving tea bags around.
He's great with even our valiant United States military.
And that requires us to have enough troops that we're not just air raiding villages and killing civilians, which is causing enormous problems there.
See, I can't understand how anyone on Entertainment Tonight could ever think that he was a divisive figure. He's bringing the left and the left of Hollywood together. Where are they getting a crazy idea that he's divisive? I don't know how he does it with a straight face. The man's done nothing but divide us. He pushes Marxist leftist stimulus bills, government health care, and wonders why the Republicans won't work with him. Because, Mr. President, it's okay in America, but we disagree. In fact, 70% of America disagrees with you. Being a uniter doesn't mean Republicans and conservatives shut up and sit in the back of the bus. I mean, you would think you would learn that from your history of the civil rights. What? We wouldn't have a problem with all these blacks if the blacks would just shut up and sit in the back of the bus. No, Mr. President, that doesn't work. That's not good. That's called hatred and bigotry. Quite honestly, that's the trademark in a politician of a dictator, or at least a very, very bad president. And Obama could be one of the worst presidents in American history. It's a miracle this guy is polling anywhere close to Romney. It's a miracle this guy isn't polling closer to our unemployment figure of 8.3. We have record deficits, crushing debt. America's credit rating is downgraded. The world is still at war and only getting worse. But there he is, doing the gutsy things. The hard-hitting interviews with celebrity fashionista Nancy O'Dell. What a surprise. Fashionista is who he sits down with. He sits down with her and he says, you know what? I'm going around the country asking people, how do we put people back to work? How do we produce American energy? How do we lower our debt? Wait a minute, Mr. President, you're going around the country and asking these questions? Hold it, really? I know, People Magazine and Entertainment Tonight didn't have the intestinal fortitude to say, wait a minute, do you know the answer to that? Or are you just going to ask people around the country? Because that's maybe a mark of a president we shouldn't have. In November, we're going to put somebody in there who gets it. Who gets this one fact, that Marxist principles do not lift people out of poverty. That redistribution of wealth does not make people self-reliant. That getting into bed with the Muslim Brotherhood does not set people free. These ideas don't work. They never have, never will. We don't need another 4 years to prove what doesn't work. We had the entire 20th century. You want to make a gutsy call, Mr. President? Call Entertainment Tonight back up and say, yeah, you know what, I've been going around because I have no idea what's working, because I really thought for a while it was working. I really thought, hey, maybe this will work, and it's not working. And I'm thinking about just saying, maybe we should all just go admit.